Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a really, a pretty uncomfortable reality.
Yeah, we do this.
We like to think of ourselves as these logical, rational decision makers.
In control.
Exactly. We wake up, we think we're choosing what we eat, how we work, how we spend our time. We think we're the captain of the ship.
And the data suggests that's a lovely, very comforting delusion.
It really is. We're doing a deep dive into Charles Duhigg's modern classic, The Power of Habit, specifically through a great breakdown by Pinar Özkan.
And the research in there, it implies that about 40% of what we do every single day isn't a decision at all.
Not a decision.
It's just a script running in the background.
That's the number that really stops you in your tracks, isn't it? 40%.
It's almost half your day. It means for nearly half your waking hours, you're not making conscious choices. You are just on autopilot.
Which is, frankly, a little terrifying. It suggests there's a version of me operating totally independently of my conscious self. So our mission today isn't to talk about, New Year's resolutions. We're just trying harder.
Right. Because that never works.
It doesn't. We need to look at the neurology of why we fail and then figure out how to find the source code for those scripts so we can actually rewrite them.
Because if you don't hack your own hardware, that hardware will just happily run the same buggy software forever.
Okay, let's start with that hardware. Why does the brain do this? If I'm the smart, evolved human, why does my brain want to turn me into a robot for half the day?
It all comes down to energy economics, really. Your brain is an energy hog.
A hog?
A huge one. It's maybe 2% of your body weight,
Yeah.
but it burns 20% of your daily energy.
Wow, okay.
So from an evolutionary standpoint, the brain is just desperate to be efficient. And making decisions is expensive. It burns a lot of glucose.
So it's trying to find shortcuts.
It's trying to turn any repeated behavior into a habit so it can, power down the heavy lifting parts of the mind.
So it's basically trying to save its own RAM.
That is a perfect analogy.
Exactly.
It wants to move tasks from that active, energy-intensive RAM to the passive hard drive.
And the source material has a great example of this, the MIT study.
The one from the 90s, yeah. It illustrates this perfectly. They took rats and put them in a T-shaped maze with a piece of chocolate at one end.
The classic rat in a maze setup.
The absolute classic. But they wired up the rats' brains so they could see what was firing and when.
Ah, okay.
And at the beginning, when the rats were first dropped in, the brain activity was, it was off the charts. The graphs were just exploding.
They were sniffing around, processing everything.
Exactly. Sniffing corners, scratching walls, analyzing every sound and smell. Their brains were working overtime.
That makes sense. They're learning the new environment.
But here's where it gets really interesting. As the rats ran the maze again and again, and they learned where the chocolate was.
You'd think the brain activity would just get a bit more efficient.
That's what you'd think. But it didn't just streamline, it dropped off a cliff.
So they were physically running the maze faster, but their brains were doing less work.
Much, much less.
Mm.
The decision-making centers basically went to sleep.
Yeah.
The only times the brain spiked were right at the beginning, the click of the gate opening, and right at the end when they got the chocolate.
And everything in between was just...
Pure autopilot. The brain had successfully offloaded the entire task.
And this offloading, we're not just talking about a metaphor here. We're talking about different physical parts of the brain, right?
We are, and this is the part that explains why habits are so incredibly, unbelievably hard to break. We have to talk about Anne named Ogen.
The case study from the book, this one really stuck with me. It almost feels like a horror story.
It's tragic for sure, but it's so scientifically revealing. Ogen was a patient who suffered severe memory loss from viral encephalitis.
And it destroyed his hippocampus.
Essentially, yeah. The part of the brain that's responsible for making new memories, gone.
So let's paint a picture here. You've got this man, Ogen, standing in his own living room. If you point to a door and ask him, where's the kitchen? What happens?
He genuinely cannot tell you. The map of his own house, in his conscious memory, is just gone. A total blank slate.
He's looking around like he's never been there before.
Exactly. He can't draw you a floor plan.
Yeah.
He can't even describe where the fridge is.
But then he gets hungry.
Right. And this is where it gets a little bit spooky. Without saying a word, he just stands up. He walks down the hall, makes a left turn, walks straight into the kitchen, opens the cupboard, takes out a jar of hazelnut cream, and eats it. Then goes right back to the couch.
And if you asked him 5 minutes later how he got that jar...
He wouldn't know.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even remember eating it.
Which proves that the habit of getting food has literally nothing to do with memory.
Precisely. It showed scientists that habits don't live in the hippocampus. They live in a totally different part of the brain, called the basal ganglia.
Okay, what's that?
Think of it like a primitive golf ball-sized lump of tissue right in the center of your skull. It's your lizard brain.
Ah, the lizard brain.
Ogen proved that even when the CEO of the brain, the memory and logic centers, is asleep or damaged, the lizard is still very much awake and running the show.
Which explains why I can find myself standing in front of the pantry eating chips before I've even consciously decided I'm hungry.
Yes.
My lizard brain just executed a script, and my CEO was out to lunch.
That's it, exactly. You're fighting these ancient biological structures that are literally designed to bypass your permission.
Okay, so we know the mechanism is the basal ganglia. Now we have to decode the software. Duhigg breaks this down into a really specific loop.
The habit loop, it has 3 components, and you see it in everything, from rats to humans. First, there's the cue,
The trigger, so the click of the gate for the rat,
or the vibration of your phone in your pocket. Then comes a routine.
the autopilot behavior.
Right. The rat running the maze, or you checking your email. And finally, the reward, the chocolate.
Okay, I want to stress test this loop idea with, the biggest habit problem modern humans have, the smartphone.
Good one.
Because I feel like that word reward is a bit tricky. When I'm doom scrolling Instagram for an hour at midnight, I don't feel rewarded.
No, you feel gross.
I feel gross and sleep deprived. So how does that fit the model?
That is such a critical distinction. When neurologists talk about reward, they don't necessarily mean joy or happiness.
It means something else.
They mean relief or stimulation.
So the brain doesn't care if I'm happy, it just cares that I'm not bored anymore.
That's it. Think about the cue. For phone usage, the cue is usually a micro moment of boredom or maybe a little bit of anxiety. You're waiting in line, or there's a lull in conversation. It creates this tiny amount of tension.
So the routine is pull out the phone.
And the reward is the subtraction of that tension. It provides a distraction. Your brain gets a tiny hit of dopamine, not enough to make you feel fulfilled, but just enough to numb the boredom.
So we're just training ourselves to resolve this little tension loop. Boredom leads to tension, which leads to phone, which leads to relief.
And if you do that 10, 20 times a day, your basal ganglia encodes it as a survival mechanism. It says, oh, whenever we feel this specific anxiety, we do this action and we feel better.
And then comes the craving.
Yes, that's the key. Eventually, the cue alone is enough to trigger a physical craving for the reward. You see your phone, and your brain is already anticipating that little dopamine hit.
And that's why willpower just fails.
It fails because you're not just fighting a thought, you're fighting a chemical spike in your own brain.
This brings us to the golden rule of habit change from the source material. And this was, for me, a bit of a revelation. The rule is you can't actually delete a habit.
No, you can't. Those neural pathways, they're etched in there. You can't just delete the file.
But you can overwrite it.
You can overwrite it. So the strategy isn't stop doing X. It's keep the cue, keep the reward, but change the routine.
That's the hack. You have to hijack the existing loop.
Let's use the smoking examples from the research. They studied smokers who wanted to quit. And they found that for many of them, the cue wasn't just a physical need for nicotine.
It was something else, like stress.
Often it was stress or the need for break from work. That was the cue. And the reward was that feeling of decompression, of relief.
Right.
So instead of trying to just ignore the craving, which is a battle you will lose, they kept the cue. When the stress hit, that was the trigger.
But they changed the routine.
Instead of lighting a cigarette, the new routine became something else. Doing 10 push-ups, chewing a piece of nicotine gum, or even just stepping outside for some deep breaths.
So they still got the relief, the reward, but they just changed the mechanism for getting there.
Exactly. The brain still gets to complete the loop. I was stressed, I did a thing, now I am less stressed.
Yeah.
It's just that the thing isn't killing you anymore.
I want to talk about the coffee example from the notes because I think a lot of people try to quit caffeine and fail miserably.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because they don't respect the ritual.
The ritual is often way more powerful than the drug itself. Let's say you drink coffee every afternoon, but it's wrecking your sleep. You decide to stop.
And you just try to sit at your desk and power through the slump.
You will fail
Yeah.
100% of the time because you're depriving your brain of the cue, the time of day, and the reward, which is the whole sensory experience.
The walk to the break room, the warmth of the cup.
The smell, the social aspect, all of it. So the fix is decaf
That's the trick.
or tea or just warm water with lemon. You keep the walk to the machine, you keep the cup, you keep the smell, you satisfy the lizard brain's need for the routine, but you just take out the caffeine.
You're tricking the basal ganglia into thinking nothing has changed.
That's the whole theme. Don't fight the lizard brain, trick it. Which brings us to willpower.
Right. The source material uses this great analogy that willpower isn't a character trait, it's a muscle.
And this changes everything. We tend to judge ourselves, right? We say, I ate that cake because I'm weak. But the science says you ate the cake because your willpower muscle was exhausted. It's a finite resource.
So every decision I make during the day drains it a little bit.
It does. Every time you focus on a boring spreadsheet or don't yell at your boss or navigate traffic, you are draining that tank. And by 8 p.m., you might have literally zero willpower left in you.
So relying on willpower to change a habit is just a terrible strategy.
It's the worst strategy because you can't guarantee you'll have any left when you need it most. A better strategy is environment design.
Friction.
You have to manage friction. It's such a great engineering concept for psychology.
Make bad things hard to do and good things easy to do.
It sounds so simple, but we rarely do it. We leave the TV remote on the coffee table and then wonder why we watch so much TV.
So if you want to break that loop, add friction.
Take the batteries out of the remote, put the remote in a drawer in another room.
So when the cue hits, I'm bored, the routine of turning on the TV now requires, what, 45 seconds of effort instead of 1 second?
And that 45 seconds is often enough for your prefrontal cortex, the CEO, to wake up and say, wait, do we actually want to do this? You're interrupting the autopilot.
And it works the other way for good habits. You have to lower the friction.
Right. If you want to practice guitar, don't keep it in the case in the closet. The friction of getting it out is just too high for a lazy brain.
So you put it on a stand in the middle of the living room.
Make it a visual nuisance. Make it so you practically trip over it. The visual cue is right there, and the friction to start playing is zero.
There's one specific technique for this I want to touch on. Habit stacking. It sounds like a productivity buzzword, but the logic is so solid.
It's a favorite of behaviorists because it uses your existing neural highways. The formula is basically, after current habit, I will new habit.
You're piggybacking on something that's already completely hardwired.
Exactly. You already brush your teeth every morning. That is a rock-solid neural pathway.
Yeah.
So you say, after I brush my teeth, I will immediately floss 1, 2.
Just 1, 2.
We'll get to the why on that in a second, but yes.
Uh-huh.
Or after I pour my coffee, I will immediately put on my gym shoes.
Yeah.
You're not asking your brain to find a new time or summon motivation.
You're just chaining a new car onto a train that's already leaving the station.
Perfect. And this leads to the idea of keystone habits.
Right. The idea that sometimes you change one little thing and it accidentally fixes your whole life.
It's the domino effect. Some habits just matter more than others because they shift your identity. And exercise is the classic keystone habit.
It's so true. The source notes that when people start a small exercise routine, even just walking, they naturally start eating better.
And they become more productive, they smoke less, they sleep better.
But they aren't trying to change those other things.
No, it just happens. It's because of a shift in self-image. When you exercise, you start to see yourself as a healthy person. And, healthy people don't eat garbage or smoke.
So the one habit changes your identity, and then your new identity fixes the other habits.
Precisely. But there's a huge trap here. The grand overhaul.
Oh, I've fallen for this so many times. The new me syndrome.
We all have.
Monday morning, I'm going to run 5 miles, eat only kale, write a novel, and meditate for an hour.
And by Wednesday, you're on the couch with a pizza, feeling like a complete failure.
Why does our brain reject that so hard?
Because it's a threat. The brain craves stability, what they call homeostasis. A massive, sudden change triggers a fight-or-flight response.
So the strategy, and this is where the floss one tooth idea comes in, is to start embarrassingly small.
So small that your brain doesn't even notice it's happening. Start so small you literally can't say no.
So if you want to run, don't commit to a 5K.
No. Commit to putting on your running shoes. That's it. That's the whole goal for the day.
And if you just stand there in your shoes and then take them off.
That's a win. You successfully executed the routine. But what happens 9 times out of 10?
Once the shoes are on, you'll go for the walk.
The hardest part is starting. You want to establish the consistency of the routine before you ever worry about the intensity.
You're just building the neural pathway first. You can run traffic through it later.
Exactly. You're proving to yourself, I am the kind of person who puts on running shoes every day. That evidence builds belief.
Okay, let's wrap up with that idea of belief. Because the book really emphasizes that for a habit to stick when things get tough, you have to believe change is possible.
Belief is the fuel. And interestingly, the research shows that belief is way easier to generate in groups.
Social support.
Yeah, whether it's AA, a running club, or just a friend you text your progress to. Seeing changes possible in others makes your brain believe it's possible for you.
And you can generate that internally too with small wins.
Creating your own evidence file. If you say, I'm going to lose 50 pounds, your brain is skeptical.
Right.
But if you say, I'm going to walk for 10 minutes, and you do it and you feel good,
That's a data point.
that's a data point. You're building a case file that proves you actually have control.
So to bring this whole deep dive home, we are essentially just trying to outsmart a very old, very efficient biological computer.
And we are, at our core, reward hunters.
Yeah.
We just chase the feeling.
So the toolkit is, don't rely on willpower. It's a muscle that gets tired. Identify the cue and the reward, but hack the routine. Use friction, make the bad stuff hard and the good stuff visible, and start stupidly small.
Better to do one push-up every day than a full workout once a month.
I love that. Okay, before we sign off, I want to leave everyone with something to chew on. What's the final takeaway?
I want to go all the way back to that 40% statistic. If nearly half of your day is on autopilot, triggered by cues you might not even be aware of, it raises a really provocative question.
Which is?
Who is actually driving? Is it you, the conscious you? Or is it a collection of habits you accidentally picked up 10 years ago?
That hits hard. It implies that if you don't actively audit your habits, you aren't really living your own life.
So my challenge to you is this. Don't try to change the whole 40% today. Just pick one loop. Identify one cue that triggers a routine you don't like, and just ask yourself, how can I keep the reward but swap the routine?
Rewrite that one script.
Rewrite one script, and you start taking the wheel back.
Taking the wheel back, a great place to end. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the power of habit.
My pleasure. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.